Hey there! You're listening to the BKDK podcast, hosted by Mimi the Bakudeku for the Bakudekus, plus Ultra! So, welcome to the BKDK podcast. This is the intro episode, or as I may title it, the overview episode, in which I give a little context about who I am, why I'm doing this, and also what I hope to be covering in this podcast. Please note that this is the first time I've ever done something like this. I've never recorded myself. I love to talk about, media and analyze them, but not to this extent, and definitely not for everyone on the internet to hear. That being said, let me get right into who I am. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I'm Mimi the Alpaca. For the podcast, I'm going to be jokingly referring to myself as Mimi the Bakudeku. I didn't get into Boku no Hero until around 2016, 2017. I, at that time, dismissed it as the new shonen anime that everyone's obsessed with, but I'm not really into shonen anime anymore unless it's super legit or, deconstructs things. That was a little bit elitist. Might be still elitist now. At that time, I was really getting into series like Revolutionary Girl Utena, and I was still on my Umineko no Nakokoro ni craze, as I had been years ago, and I just was really into what I call niche, deep stuff. I just really liked things that I could, mentally tear into and talk about at length with other people. And I just didn't think that Boku no Hero, seeing it was an anime about superheroes, would do anything like that. But somehow my brother, who was also the one who recommended it to me, grabbed me, and we sat through seasons 1 to season 2 in one sitting. And I was hooked. I took back everything I said. I felt very refreshed watching it. It was like coming home to something that I grew up in, but had left for, I guess, greater new horizons. But, home is home. And at the same time, the refreshing aspect. I felt like Boku no Hero deals with a lot of tropes that are very familiar, but they handle it very differently. The characters, Deku is an underdog. It's his setting, or his starting point as someone who doesn't have the powers, and then as the course of the series gets that powers. That's not very new, but some reason, and we'll get into it in the podcast, the way that Horikoshi writes it makes it seem like this isn't, the same old story, this chosen one, and he has this OP power. No, he has to work very hard for it, etc. And the same can be said for the other main character of this podcast, and the other main character in the series, let's be real, Bakugo Katsuki. So I pegged him at first as that rival character, and I really disliked him. He was really annoying. He was a jerk. I mean, come on, he's still a jerk. And I was just like, why would anyone like him? I don't like him. I refuse to like him. He's probably going to be the villain, and Deku's probably going to fight him in the future. I can see the plot. But again, as the series goes on, that's not the case. The twists and turns that we expect to see don't happen. And that's what kept me going. Now, as for the matter of why I ship Bakudeku, that's only because it started as a joke, and then I blacked out, and then next thing you know, I was in love with the ship, and as the years went on, I just found more and more reason to be really, I guess, intense about the ship. Horikoshi has done so much in regards to the relationship. He's given so much nuance to Deku's character, Kachan's character, and all their interactions, indirect, not direct, are so packed with, things that aren't said but are there if you just read closely. And I just really wanted to talk about it. or I guess record it and talk about it with people afterwards. Just kind of putting my thoughts out there. And I suppose I could have done this writing it out and maybe had more time, put it in a YouTube video with like the pictures and stuff. But as it stands, I don't really have that much time. I have other projects I want to do. I'm trying to be an artist, all of that jazz. But this is something that means a lot to me, and I have a lot of fun talking about Bakudeku stuff. And I think it'd be nice for those Bakudeku people out there who feel like, they're a little crazy in liking this ship involving two characters. You're not, because you're not the one who did a podcast or starting a podcast on them. But yes, in fact, let me tell you something. The fun fact is, I actually wasn't Bakudeku in the beginning. In the beginning of the series, I didn't even ship. I normally don't ship in series or anime. And when I did start shipping, it was a joke. I saw Todoroki Kun's reaction or interactions with Deku and was like, oh, that's so cute. They're like, he's confessing to him and telling him his backstory, and like they're gonna get intimate and stuff. That's so funny. They're so cute. And then with the Stain arc, I was like totally on board with like Todo Ida Deku. I was like, they're BFFs, and what more can I ask for? But as I said before, I think the fact that at that point there was already some nuance to Kachan's characters. There's already some deconstruction of like what everybody shallowly thinks of him and what he actually is. That I started feeling this attraction, to the ship, to the relationship between Bakugo and Deku as a whole, like even without the romantic lenses. So there's that. And I guess in regards to why I might have not to say credentials, but I guess a little bit more something to, I guess, a foundation to be starting this podcast on. I grew up watching shonen anime like a bunch of kids. I grew up, watching... Inuyasha is the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm just like, no, because I have a very cringy past with that. Not that Inuyasha is bad. I still have a very warm spot for it in my heart, but I wrote some pretty cringy fanfiction. Someone can ping me about it sometime. But Inuyasha, I grew up watching Inuyasha, I grew up watching Naruto and Bleach before it got imported to my country. This was when, this is when people were like burning episodes onto like CDs or, looking it up online, on YouTube, things like that, okay? We didn't have Crunchyroll or all these streaming sites. You all did it on the down low. It may not have been as down low as like, people recording onto VHSs. I wasn't in that time. But my brother, I remember he also was like borrowing like DVD sets from friends and stuff. Like that's how I watched my anime. And if my brother, didn't somehow get that anime, I didn't get anime. Dragon Ball Z, Hunter x Hunter, although I watched that later on, and I'm talking about not the 2011 version, the older version. I watched Fullmetal Alchemist, both versions, Fairy Tail, Kiba. I think that one's not so well known. It's kind of like, I've never actually heard anyone talk about that, but I like that one. What else? I know there was more, but those are like the biggest ones that I remember. Did I mention Bleach? Bleach. I actually was more of a Bleach fan. I was more of a Bleach. Oh my god, I can't say it. I was more of a Bleach fan than Naruto, actually, just because I thought like Bleach was edgier and like cooler. They all had the Zanpakuto with the sword and like fighting, and I made so many like original stories that were not so original because I just borrowed characters from Bleach, but who hasn't done that? Yeah, so that's kind of like the background I'm coming from. A lot of those anime. Oh, Yu Yu Hakusho. I also watched Yu Yu Hakusho. Okay, yeah. Anyway, point is, I have watched a lot of shonen anime, and I'm very familiar with the tropes, the very common tropes of like the main character is a dummy. Oh, One Piece. I keep forgetting One Piece. I forget about One Piece because that series is still not done as the time of this recording. So yeah, my brain just doesn't even register it as like, oh, one of the anime I watched. It's still an anime I'm supposed to be watching. I'm like so behind. Anyway, yes, tropes. I'm familiar with them. And I think when I'm talking about them, I think I have some, I guess, foundation to be criticizing them and praising Horikoshi for deconstructing them. Okay, so to wrap up this podcast, the last thing I wanted to talk about is what is this podcast going to be about? So it's a BKDK podcast. I'm going to be talking about Boku no Hero, analyzing Boku no Hero, both the anime and the manga, through Bakudeku lenses, and just kind of focusing on Bakudeku's relationship. And I'm going to be addressing a lot of common arguments, and like explaining a lot of like theories that a lot of Bakudeku people have, put up about it. Just really giving you that Bakudeku content, but in the most, I guess, meta way as possible. The best that I can do on a podcast, and you can't see the actual content. So that's going to be me breaking down panels, talking about beats, talking about dialogue. I'm going to be talking a lot about dialogue, expressions on their faces, and this is all coming from like someone who also draws comics. So I'm very familiar with like techniques, and just I guess also as a consumer, I can be aware of what these panels are doing to me, and if had Horikoshi or the anime framed it a little differently, a different effect would come about. So I'm just going to be talking about all of that, and then kind of like using it to present to you an argument that Bakudeku, even if it's not going to be a romantic thing, because let's be real, this is shonen anime, this is being published in Shonen Jump, and the day that they let gay characters be a thing, I will die. The pigs will fly, things like that. So we know Bakudeku is probably not going to be canon, but the closest to canon that we get is them two working together. So that's going to be the, serious argument. And of course, there's going to be a lot of jokes in the podcast I'm going to make about how Deku has a crush on Kachan, but he really does. Okay, I'm not joking about that. And though I say I'm going to be analyzing the manga and the anime, I am going to be eventually throwing in the movies as well. I have not watched two Heroes. I don't know anything about that, except there's this blonde chick named Melissa. There's a ship called Dave Might, and it originates from that movie. I have watched Heroes Rising. Who hasn't? I can't say that. I don't think it's out in every country as of recording, but I watched it. Very fortunate to have watched it several times now. I think I've watched it 3 times. The third time being a courtesy of Osaka Kitty. She was really nice, and she hosted up this like server, and she streamed it for like all these Bakudeku people to see, and I happened to be there being the filthy Bakudeku I am, and I saw it again and I gushed. And yes, I'm gonna be talking about that in the future. I'm gonna break it down. And then I also wanted to analyze the music in Boku no Hero. As you all know, we've been very fortunate to have theme songs dedicated to our 2 characters. So that's the most obvious one is Date Atashi no Hiro. But I also wanted to talk about Peace Sign, Night Plus You, Katsuki and Izuku, the OST that wasn't used for Kachan versus Deku 2. Don't know why. And also, I probably will look at the actual openings for the anime as well, and maybe the ending if there's anything to look at there. I actually haven't really looked at him closely. I'm one of those people, you can shame me for this, but I actually skip the opening and ending no matter what, because I just binge things. It's not that I don't like the music, I just want to watch my anime, okay? And then finally, on the topic of guests. So podcasts, not every podcast is just done by someone solo. For now, it is going to be a solo podcast, but I do want to say that going forward, maybe in the future, soon future, far future, I am going to invite guests. I don't know how it's going to work. I just know that's something I want to do, and the only reason why I'm not doing it right now is because, again, this is my first podcast, and I want to make sure that this kind of lifts this project gets lifted off before I do something more. And this project kind of falls off. Collaboration is a difficult thing, even though we have the internet. And I need some time. But I definitely am looking to invite guests, do features with like people who also, theorize. And yeah, just stay tuned for that. Well, with that said, that's all I got for the overview of this podcast, and I hope that you will enjoy the episodes that are coming forth, and thank you so much for even wanting to listen to someone like me, a total random stranger, talking about how much BKDK is a thing. Also, can I say, BKDK is really awkward to say out loud. Like, reading it, whatever, but saying it out loud, oof. Hopefully, it won't be so, strange the more I say it in this podcast. All right, see you in episode 1.